All right, hello guys, and welcome back to Nostos Strength and Conditioning, the home of the Nostos S&C podcast. As always, thank you all for your responses so far to all the videos and the podcast, listening on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. It's much appreciated. All the comments, all the likes on Instagram is very helpful to me. So if you can keep those coming, anything you want to see discussed, any questions you want answered, any topics you want covered, and suggestions of people who you want to see on here, even if it's yourself or a friend who you think has an interesting story or anything interesting to say that the world should hear about, let me know. Direct message me on Instagram at Nostos Strength and Conditioning, and we will sort that out. Over the last few episodes, we seem to have developed a mixed martial arts theme, and that continues today as I introduce our fifth guest to the podcast, another guy that's reached out to me recently, who I'm meeting for the first time today, and that is Mr. Louis Smithson.
Nice to be here, good to be here.
How are you, sir?
Very good, thank you.
Appreciate you coming on. So, straight off the bat, because I've just mentioned the martial arts, so you are an amateur boxer.
Yep.
You've fought K1, and you've fought MMA.
That's it.
Okay. I think most people will be familiar with boxing and MMA. Let's start on the K1, because some people might know what that means. Some people might not know what that means. So if I say K1, if you can just elaborate on what that is.
So
for us.
It's similar to kickboxing. You got a few more weapons. You're allowed to knee.
Okay.
And you're allowed to kick below the waist. So in kickboxing, you're only allowed to kick above the waist.
Okay.
K1, you can kick below the waist, and that's sort of the only really difference there is between the
less rules. Okay, so fists, feet, knees,
fists, feet, and
elbows.
Knees. You can't. That's Muay Thai. So K1 you can't
so
elbow.
So there's kickboxing, K1, and Muay Thai. They're all different.
All different. Yeah.
When you're competing, of course. Okay, so you fought K1. What's your record in K1?
So that was a 1-on-1.
So 1-1, lost 1.
Yeah.
And you fought mixed martial arts,
which the record was 0-3. That was
0-3. So you didn't win a knee, lost 3. Okay. And if you can remember, because I know boxing's your forte, so your amateur boxing record.
I've had a load of boxing matches, junior and senior. So I've had about, trying to add it up like in my head, think about it.
Figure, 30.
About 30. No, probably 40. About 40.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's junior and senior?
Junior and senior. So it changes. Once you fight as a junior on a whole lot different cards sort of thing, you get like a card.
Sure.
And then you lose the head guards, and then that's senior.
Okay.
After that, at 18 years old, you're senior.
Senior but still amateur?
Yeah.
So you're currently not pro?
Nope.
You're looking to turn pro?
Planning to turn pro in about 2 years.
What exactly does that mean? What's the difference? Is it just the money side? Is it
even
the rule set?
It's the rules, like, obviously there's the money side, more exposure. The amateur's like an apprenticeship to moving on to the real thing, which is the pro, which is more, obviously you get televised fights.
Wow, okay.
Money, just general exposure really.
So have you fought on any particular promotion so far, or are they just local shows?
So it's just local shows, like gyms put on shows, like different gyms. It's the ABA, so that's like England boxing. It could lead you to multiple championships, national, so like the GB squad. So just ABA.
Okay. Okay, and what weight class do you fight at? Because of course, in all fighting, to keep it fair, you fight someone at your weight. So what weight do you fight at?
So I'm 60 kg, so that is a super featherweight.
And that's just in boxing?
So yeah, well,
Does
boxing and MMA is a bit different.
Okay.
MMA, there's a lot less weight classes.
Okay.
And the jump is more, so like the difference in weight is like 4 or 5 kilos usually. Whereas boxing's like 1 or 2. There's
Really?
a lot more. It's a lot.
Okay.
A lot of weight classes.
So you fought at super featherweight in amateur boxing?
Amateur boxing.
In mixed martial arts?
I fought at flyweight, and I had one at bantamweight as well.
So you actually went up
I
weight?
went up a weight.
Interesting. How do you feel about that? Because you don't see too much of that. I can't speak for the amateur level. I watch a lot of the professional level. A lot of UFC, Bellator, things like that. You don't see too many people jumping weight classes.
Yeah.
Can reference Conor McGregor,
Yeah.
Again, he's made it on the podcast. We love him here. Of course, he's got 3 knockouts at 3 different weight divisions, which is unprecedented, unheard of. Is that something you'd continue to look to do, potentially in boxing? Or?
Definitely. I think it's the challenge. Everyone likes a challenge, and he's obviously a good testament to that. He's challenged himself, and it's paid off in 3 different weight classes.
Sure.
I mean, for me, I'd love to like go up, down, possibly, if I could cut that weight. But I'd like to do about 3 or 4 different weight classes in boxing.
Okay. How do you feel about weight cutting? If we say you fight at 60 kg, a lot of terms get thrown around in the fight game about walking around weight and fight weight. So how different is your walking around weight to your fight weight?
So I probably walk about 64 kilos. So over in boxing,
about 10 stone.
Yeah. So in boxing, you don't really cut as much weight as you would in MMA, because of obviously in MMA you're grappling, you want that physical advantage. But yeah, it's MMA. A lot more weight needs to be cut. I used to cut down, so I used to walk about like 63. I used to cut down to like 56.5, 57.
Wow.
And you get a bit more time in MMA because you fight like 3 times a year. But it's still difficult. Diet and sitting in the saunas like that last week is tough. So
how did you feel at sort of 56.5?
Yeah, so that's why I decided to end up going out. 1, because I wanted the challenge, and 2, it was a struggle, like no food or like limited food, water cutting.
It must be tough to choose your weight, because slightly underweight and you're going to feel lighter. You could feel slightly lower in energy, lower muscle mass, and if you take it the other way and you're a little bit heavy, you're going to be slower, potentially sluggish, just too heavy, blowing out, cardio's not where it should be. So I mean, and we've seen that again. So when you talk about the professional game, it could be argued that Conor McGregor down at 145 pounds was annihilating people, and he was. You can see that from his fights. Then he goes 155, and actually I think when he fought Nate Diaz the first time, let's say he was 170, and he was almost a big 170, and not a lean 170. He was blown up, and he seemed to gas out. So that seemed to be an issue for him. Bringing him back down to 155, and he annihilates again. And then his most recent fight against Cowboy, he looked a nice 170 lean. His energy looked good. So, like I say, I mean, how do you manage that? I guess it must just be an individual feeling of
I mean,
that's my weight.
Yeah, it's completely dependent on the person. I think like you could one day, you could be like, oh, I could make this weight, I could cut, I don't mind doing it, and then the other, a month later, you could be like, I don't reckon I could get that weight. I think it's mental as well. Like if you think you can't do it, you're not going to do it. You're not going to make the weight. And I think where he'll do whatever, he'll make the weight if he wants to make the weight, and that's what it is. And that 170, I think when he fought Nate Diaz, meant to be 155, he probably had to cut a little bit, and he thought, I might as well just go for a third weight class. It's more attention. And now he's had that full camp at 170. He looked unbelievable.
He did look great.
Because I think he's had that full camp to be like, I'm going to make 170, I'm going to look good at 170. And he's done it. But
then I guess you get the other side of things, because the champ at 170 being Usman, Conor McGregor probably walks around maybe 165. Probably gains a little bit of weight for 170 and feels nice and fed, nice and energized, nice and strong. Whereas in the same weight class, you've got Usman, who probably walks around 190, 195, 200. He's a big man, so he's cutting quite heavy for that. So a lot of people have said that, maybe we shouldn't see Conor fight Usman because he'll tear him apart. And then you get people maybe not so much in the know saying, but they're the same weight class, so why should that happen? But of course, you're getting different size, different shaped men, some gaining weight to make the level, some losing weight to make the level, and some just walking around at that level. And then I guess probably why we don't see so many people going up and down.
Well, that's it.
Like McGregor seems to have done and made it look so easy. It's really not that easy.
No, it's not easy at all. Like with the UFC, like some other professional promotions have got a few more weight classes. People are always like Donald Cerrone, McGregor. They all want that like 165 pound division.
Yes, I've heard that.
Which I think a lot of fighters would probably look better at that weight. You know.
Yeah.
But I just think people don't want to take the risk of being like, if I go up, he is cutting down. Is there going to be that massive physical factor? And I think there is a lot of the time. It's like if Usman and McGregor fought, he would do well, he would do well. I just wouldn't know.
See that.
Yeah.
But like you say, more weight classes, because for those who don't know, to my knowledge, you've got the 145 division, 155, so that's a 10-pound jump.
Yeah.
Then that goes from the 155 to 170,
and then 170 to
15-pound jump, 205.
No, there's
heavyweight.
So you got the 170, which is welterweight, then you got the middleweight, which is 185, I think,
right,
and then it goes to
205.
Yeah.
But it's a 15-pound jump, so
that's a lot of weight,
especially coming up from 10. Okay. So where do you train? I'm guessing if you've done MMA and K1 and boxing, probably a few in there. So
I've done.
Where have you trained?
MMA and K1 all at Backstreet Dojo, which is Tony Newman's
Joe
gym.
Hughes.
Like, love those guys over there. Like, they treated me so well when I was there. Always and that's what they were always like. Fighter first. They don't. If you lose, they make sure you're right.
Sure.
And that's what you want in a coach,
proper
really.
Outfit, proper coaches.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Okay, shout out the Backstreet Dojo.
Yeah, and I'm now boxing at Westside Boxing Gym in Hounslow.
I've heard of that.
So it's like a mixture between amateur and pros there.
Okay.
And it's just a great gym. Like I've only been there. I started off at Twickenham and Brunswick, and I've been at Westside now for about a year, and I feel like I've completely changed as a fighter. Like it's just the technical side of it and the mental side of it that they go through as well. It's just leaps and bounds for me.
I would imagine you can't buy the experience of being around professional fighters and amateur fighters.
Yeah.
I very little dabbled in some mixed martial arts when I was in the States a few years ago, and a similar atmosphere. You had some guys going for titles in pretty prestigious companies around there. You've got just your everyday men and women who are coming to do a little bit of self-defense and just maybe even get fit, and that's all in one melting pot. And I never thought it would be, but I spoke to a few professional fighters, and they would say, you know, if the sparring was happening or something like that, I obviously being so inexperienced would just say, all right, I'm just going to sit over here.
Yeah.
You know, what have I got to offer you? Like, let me just sit over here. I'll watch, maybe try and learn something. And actually, they would turn around and say, well, actually, no, because you being essentially not a fighter in comparison to me, probably 10, 12 years veteran of training, you're going to move in such a way that I don't even recognise.
Yeah.
So that's what I can take from you. So, in fact, actually get in there and just do what comes naturally to you, which could be to flinch, which could be just to throw a wild shot, and then they have to prepare for that, as opposed to fighting an MMA guy of 10 years experience who moves exactly how you expect him to, and you just keep kind of drilling similar things. Like that body that moves in such a different way can give them so much more awareness in other ways. So when you say that gym has brought you on in that way,
it's because I'm mixing with everyone.
I can imagine that experience of the pros and the amateurs. Everyone moves different. Everyone is at a different level of experience, including you, who is preparing for however many fights you've had. There's no like end goal, right? You're not now the perfect boxer.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, I don't think anyone is. Like when you see a novice come into the gym and you watch them do the basics, it makes you think about when you were doing the basics, and you're like, cool, I might have just let that slip a bit, so I need to practice that. And it just reminds you of like, you're always learning. You're never going to be better than what you'd imagine, because you're always going to keep learning. And that's why I like the mix, because I could be looking at someone who's like really good, and I'm like, oh, I want to be like them. And I look at the boy next door, and he's just learning how to jab, and you think, I need to make my jab better, because
humbling,
I've let it slip.
It's humbling.
Yeah,
there's no two ways about it. So are you a member of, like, I want to say a regular gym? Let's say like strength-wise, conditioning, weights, anything like that? Do you go?
So I go to the Thames Club in Staines.
Nice, okay.
Yeah, so it's just I try not to. I do weights. I've got like a little regime that I do, but it's more cardio, like long distance running. I'm quite old school with my boxing training. My dad used to be a professional boxer, And he just like instilled in me like old school is sort of the best way. And this gym as well, they're sort of old school gym, which I like that. It does work.
It's come on a lot in the last few years, let's say like the strength and conditioning side of things, like maybe not so much in MMA, purely because MMA is still such a new sport. Like when you think back to early UFC days, Chuck Liddell and people like that, they were still pretty Ken Shamrock. They were monsters anyway. But in terms of how strength and conditioning has come in through sport, like if you look at, I always use rugby players. Rugby players used to be typically pretty big drinkers, maybe the beer belly's out, and they go out there, they smash each other up. Whereas now you've got like 6'4", like 100 kilo lean, fast, absolute machines. And that is purely strength and conditioning. That is nothing else, and nothing to do with the game of rugby. That is purely a sports scientist has come in and started instilling these training methods into people. And I say that in here because, again, the professionals I spoke to in the States had very little knowledge of strength and conditioning. They might throw some dumbbells around and, that's my strength work. Whereas if they actually delved into the science, or if they had someone to help them or advise them on how, if you can just condition your body to almost do anything for 5 minutes for 5 rounds, then fighting, let's not say it's going to be a breeze, but you can certainly handle those demands so much easier.
When I say like old school, like don't get me wrong, it needs to be done. You do need the strength and conditioning, and I use it now more for so my body doesn't give up on me, and that like it's built my body up to withstand the punishment that you take in a boxing ring. And I think it is a big part. And it's like if you look at old school fighters, that even their body shapes compared to now, the athleticism in a lot of fighters, the explosiveness of them, like
for example,
it has changed a lot over the past 20, 30 years, I'd say, and that is obviously down to strength and conditioning.
Yeah, you can't just rely on your skills anymore.
And that's what I used to do.
Sure.
When I was younger, I used to think, I'll go for a run, get a bit fit, and then do that. But now I've started doing the strength and conditioning more. It probably is down to that. I never really sort of paid attention to it. I just sort of jump in the ring and do it. But
just get it done. You could do that when you're young, but your body's the engine, right? Your body's the engine to put out these techniques and skills that you have in the boxing world. If that engine starts failing you can't do the techniques you've worked on. Which I think again has become more apparent these days, and I feel like it could take you a hell of a long way in terms of. I've watched some amateur MMA, and I was training at the time, and I was nowhere near getting in the cage. I was not interested in me. It's just not for me. But I'm watching these guys, and 2 rounds in, you can see they're heavily sort of blowing. They're heavily tired, like, which is fine, which is fair enough. But for me, it's like if you're gonna put yourself in that danger, and make no mistake, at amateur level, that is pure danger. Someone's going in there to take your head off. You're doing the same for them. I feel like the least you can do is be prepared physically.
Definitely.
Is not blow out. Is be able to hold your hands up for 3 rounds, 5 rounds, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever the time limit is. That's the least you can do. You are in complete control of that. You can forgive someone who doesn't have a good roundhouse right now or can't defend takedowns because you're learning. That's fine. You're on your way up. But the least you can do is be physically prepared. That is completely on you. Your diet, your training, your information, what you've read about, who you've brought in to talk to you about these things and educate yourself. And it baffles me that people would even dream of stepping into the octagon or the ring without
the proper training,
without your physical readiness at its peak.
I mean, I've probably even done it before as an amateur boxer. When you first turn 18 and you like start going out with your mates and girls or whatever, you start missing sessions. You start doing that, and then you just, as soon as it comes to fight day, you're like, I've missed a few sessions here. You start doubting yourself, and then so as soon as you're not physically prepared, the mental side of it slips as well. And I've done that a few times, so I just never wanted to make that mistake again.
I'm sure.
So I agree there.
How do you find your training and fighting works around your work life? Because I'm sure it's not your full-time job. It's not even your part-time job, essentially.
No,
You're not pro, and
it's
you're
like
looking
a hobby basically at the minute.
It's a strange one because you're right, it is that. But it's such a strange thing because football's a hobby and rugby's a hobby and tennis is a hobby. These are sports that we play. You don't play fighting.
No.
It's ridiculous. So, how do you find that fits in around your work schedule and your work life? Is it as important, more important?
To be honest, I think about it like all the time.
Okay.
It's always on your mind, so it takes up a lot of my mental capacity. But I'm like a tradesman, so it's like a 8 till 4 usually work. So I'm training every evening.
Nice.
Try and get up in the mornings, go for a run, get that done, and then train in the evening. So I train about four boxing sessions a week, and then I try and do 2 like weight sessions and at least 2-3 good runs.
So I mean, it's a big commitment, and essentially, I might be wrong, but at amateur level, there's no money.
No.
So you don't get paid to do shows.
In the MMA, you get a percentage of your ticket sales.
Okay.
And that's sort of when pros like just start out. That's the same for them. You get some of them might get a little purse, but it's usually commissions on the tickets. But amateur boxing, you're paying to do it. You pay the gym every month, and that's it. You just hope it pays off when you turn pro, and you can maybe make a few quid that way. But yeah, you just have to love it, I think.
It's such a catch-22 because you've got to build up some fights and get some reputation to get noticed, but you could be taking a significant amount of damage during that time and not getting anything for it. So, even up at the pros, you don't just walk in and be a pro. You don't just walk in and win fight of the night bonus.
Unless you're someone like Chris Eubank Jr., whose dad's going to be like, jump in.
Okay.
But, no, yeah. Like, even like YouTubers now, like that is crazy.
Is that big in the game?
Like it's like you see that Logan Paul, whoever they are.
KSI.
I don't agree with it. I don't agree with them just walking in and there's
pros. Money for that, right?
There's pros who work their whole lives who would have a better fight than those two, and they like it's.
Yep.
I don't agree with that.
I can only imagine. So you mentioned your records. So MMA, for example, which you tried your hand at 3 times, 3 losses. You could argue that the pros, when they lose, there could be a purse, there could be a turn-up bonus, any of those things. You don't get any of that.
No.
So you've just done a fight camp, tried your best, done everything, invited all your friends, all your family.
That's it.
And it's not gone the way you wanted it to. How do you deal with that?
I mean, it's tough. Like I used to take losing so bad, but then I sort of realised it is like the apprenticeship to going on to the pro game or whatever. It's not the end of the world.
You've got to learn
wake
to
up
lose,
the next day, and
it's part of life as well.
Exactly. You can lose and be healthy, and you just got to thank God that you're healthy. Basically, if you lose and you're starting to get really hurt when you're losing, like touch wood, I've never been really hurt.
Taking a lot of damage.
You just is it? You got to weigh in. Is it worth? I'm not getting paid. I'm getting really beat up. But so luckily I didn't get really hurt, and I just thought MMA it was too much for me, and I got back to boxing. That was it.
Okay.
But the losses, they're hard to deal with. Like mentally, you think even though it's a little amateur show, not many people probably see it. You walk down the road and you think everybody knows I just lost the fight. Like everybody knows, and it feels like the end of the world. But it's not. Like no one really cares. Like it doesn't matter. They don't not like you because you lost the fight or something like that. It's just it's a pride thing. Yeah, you just don't want to. You put all that time in and you feel like it was a waste. But as long as you can try and take something from it, that's the best way.
The next one, right?
Yeah, that's it.
And how you mentioned when we talked a little bit about your implementation of the law of attraction. Did you say you've read The Secret, the book?
Yeah, and I watched so I've read like bits of it, and I've watched the one on Netflix. It's the same thing, but it's like the film side of it. And obviously, you hear like Conor McGregor, he talks about it a lot.
He does.
And if you look at a lot of successful people and athletes, businessmen, they're all the same. They even if they don't even know they're doing it, like it's still
a lot of them talk about it. I agree. And I would say the funny thing is the people who sort of poo-poo it and who are like, oh, have you heard this? Have you heard that? It's easy for Tony Robbins to stand there and say that. It's easy for Conor McGregor to be at the top and say that, and Tiger Woods and whoever else is saying it. It's like, well, yeah, it is easy for them to say that, but at the same time, it's easy for you to say that. Yeah,
and they weren't always there. Do you know what I mean? They weren't always at the top of their game, but they were still doing it.
And no one was handed anything.
No
one was handed a thing. Like Conor McGregor was not handed a thing. Tiger Woods was not handed a thing. And don't get me wrong, there are people at the top of some games who might have got some help along the way. Yeah. They might be in that job position because they knew someone or whatever, that's fine. But there's one thing getting somewhere and there's another thing staying somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can't sort of deny that. And if that's what they have felt has helped them, fine, then it helped them. Maybe they were destined for it. It kind of comes down to what you believe.
Yeah, exactly, and that is part of it. Destiny. You think if you're thinking that is your destiny, you're always thinking about it. It's going to happen anyway.
Sure.
So yeah, for me, I started practicing a little bit here and there a year ago, and I just feel a lot more mentally positive. I just
maybe in control of things.
Yeah.
And I agree with that, because a lot of people will say, oh, you don't just wake up and say I'm going to be rich and you'll be rich. Well, no, of course not. But if you wake up and say I want to be rich, I want to be rich, I want to be rich, I'm going to do anything to make myself rich, and nothing's going to stop me from being rich. That's a lot different. If you're prepared to do anything, and you're either a person that will be stopped or a person that will not be stopped.
Exactly.
And that's kind of it. And when things happen and shit hits the fan, fine. How do we deal with this? What's coming? How do I get out of this? What's the solution? I have a problem. What's the solution? Whereas a lot of people will have a problem, acknowledge the problem, moan about the problem, go on about the problem, and then maybe arrive at the solution 2, 3 or 4 days when the opportunity's gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's fair to say, if people actually look at most things in their life, some of the best things have happened or come from potentially some of the worst.
Yeah, definitely.
Whether it's a loss in a fight, a loss of a partner, a death in the family, something, and if you've used that and put that into the right sort of, if you've taken that into your life the right way and learnt from it what you need to,
then you're going to benefit on the other side.
You're going to benefit on the other side.
That is it.
Nice. Okay, so just finally, when you reached out to come on the podcast, and I appreciate a lot of the people that have done that also, but amongst other things, something that stood out for me was your involvement and your passion with this movement, Knives Down, Gloves Up.
Yep.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit for us?
So it's a company, sort of, it's gotten quite big now. Tyson Fury, Billy Joe Saunders, big fighters like that are sort of supporting it. And the minute I saw it, I just thought that is something that I would like to be involved with. And I'm hoping, working on it at the minute to try and get into schools and talk to kids about. It's basically just getting them into boxing gyms, getting them doing something.
Getting them off the street.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't even have to be boxing, like football, anything like that. But I think boxing it teaches kids such a good discipline.
And martial arts in general. I'll push that
100%. I
my
mean,
whole life, because that is
I've never seen a sport that you could, it doesn't matter what race you are, religion you are, you walk in there and it just goes out the window. It doesn't matter.
If you're willing to work hard and be
you,
respectful and listen and learn, any and everyone's welcome. Boys, girls, old, young, any race, any religion.
And that is exactly why I just think it's one of the best sports, martial arts, boxing, just because it brings you, when you start sparring and you come out like best friends with the person you've been sparring.
Because it's respectful, you're both trying to help each other get somewhere.
Exactly. So if you start thinking about people like that all the time, I think a lot of this crime stuff, this knife crime, that is crazy. Boxing used to be taught in schools. It stopped in the 1960s. And if you look at the older generation, they weren't going around stabbing each other. Do you know what I mean? No. So I think it's a generational thing. I think there's not a lot of punishment for kids these days. Is
that something that Knives Down, Gloves Up are trying to do? Are they trying to bring that back?
Yeah, so they're just trying to support
physical education at school, and lessons.
I think they've got a petition going at the minute. They've got quite a few signatures, so hopefully it gets sorted, just to basically get boxing either as an actual lesson or an extra curriculum in schools.
Okay, I think martial arts in general, like I said, could just be something that could help with that.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so you can check that out. Knives Down, Gloves Up on Instagram.
Yep.
Gonna thank you for coming on.
Thank you for
having me. I appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else you want to add? Any shout outs you want to do? Gyms or anything like that?
No, just all the training partners that have ever helped me. Thank you very much. And Tony Newman Backstreet Dojo taught me a lot. Grateful for that, and the gym that I'm at now. So
okay, and we can catch you on Instagram at
Louis Smithson Boxer.
All right, check him out. Check this out on Spotify, on YouTube, and on Apple Podcast, and I will catch you down the road.